All right, let's jump right in. What if the Great Pyramids weren't tombs at all? I mean, what if all those ancient monuments we see around the world were actually just parts of a massive, global, wireless power grid? Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating theory from our source material that suggests exactly that. It basically asks us to reimagine our entire ancient past.
So the source material kicks things off with this. You gotta admit, it's a pretty bold statement. It immediately challenges everything we think we know about ancient history. The whole idea is that what we've been told are just tombs and temples is actually something way more advanced.
And really, this is the big question at the heart of the whole theory. It's asking us to just for a minute put aside the official history books and think about a totally different possibility for places like the Giza pyramids. So what is this different possibility? Well, it all revolves around this core idea of a hidden, ancient, and global power grid. A system that, according to the source, once powered a civilization that's been long forgotten. And this is where you see the two stories clash. On one side, you have the official history we all learned in school. These incredible structures were tombs for pharaohs, temples for gods. But on the other side, you have this Luma grid theory, which says, nope, they were all working parts of a giant, connected power network. Now, to really get what's going on here, you have to understand some of the lingo from the source. Mainstream history, they call that the dull code. It's portrayed as this kind of simplified, almost deceptive story that's hiding what these ancient sites were really for. So you're probably asking, who's doing all this hiding? Well, the source points a finger at a group it calls the Vipers. This is supposedly some organization that has spent centuries making sure nobody finds out about this ancient power grid. Okay, so let's just say for a second that this grid was real. How in the world did it actually work? Well, let's start with the first major component, the pyramids. This theory reimagines them, not as tombs, but as etheric antennas. Now, this idea completely flips everything we thought we knew about ancient Egypt on its head. According to this theory, the Giza complex had nothing to do with the dead. It was a piece of working technology, a huge transceiver built to pull in and send out energy. The theory says it all comes down to three key design features that made these antennas work. First, their location, right at the geographic center of all of Earth's land. Second, the material, this special kind of granite packed with conductive quartz. And third, they were capped with gold, which supposedly acted as the connection point to pull in an energy the source calls Luma frequency. And let's zoom in on that material for a second. The source points to a really specific number, 27% quartz content, in the pyramid's granite. It argues this isn't just a random coincidence. No, it was a very deliberate choice to use the natural conductive power of quartz. Okay, so if the pyramids are the antennas, what was the main hub, the command center for this whole thing? Well, that brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, the legendary lost city of Atlantis. And get this. To explain what Atlantis actually did, the source uses this amazing modern metaphor. It wasn't just some city, it was the server room for the entire planet, managing and controlling the flow of energy all across the network. So what happened to it? Why isn't this global server room around anymore? This is where the theory gets, well, pretty out there. It claims Atlantis wasn't destroyed by an earthquake or a flood. Instead, it was vibrationally unplugged, like it was deliberately shifted to a different frequency to make it invisible to us. So, we've got the antennas, the pyramids, we've got the central server, Atlantis. But how you connect the two? How do you wire up the entire planet? This brings us to the third and final piece of the Luma grid, ley lines. The source calls them the Earth's nervous system. Here's another great metaphor the source uses to explain ley lines. They're like the invisible wires under the floorboards of the world, these unseen energy currents that connect all the important points on the grid. And the source gets super specific about where these key connection points are. It mentions places like Mount Shasta and what it calls true Egypt, labeling them as the Earth's chakras. It also claims that things like old star forts and even the great cathedrals were built by the Vipers right on top of these ley lines specifically to tap in and siphon off their energy. All right, let's put all the pieces together. We've talked about the pyramids, Atlantis, the ley lines. How does it all connect to form one single functioning system, at least according to the source? So here's the whole system in a nutshell. You have the pyramids acting as the antennas or transceivers. You have Atlantis as the central hub, the server room. And you have the ley lines as the wiring, the nervous system connecting it all. It's described as one big, cohesive wireless power grid for the entire globe. And that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question to think about. If this ancient global power grid was really vibrationally unplugged, like the source claims, what would it actually mean for us, for humanity, if we could figure out a way to plug it back in? Definitely something to chew on.